The Ramayana, the Mahabharata. You've heard the names, right? These incredible stories filled with heroes, gods, and these massive epic battles. But what if we could peel back all those layers of legend and find a real, historical world hidden inside? Well, that's exactly what we're going to try and do. And that's the big question, isn't it? For centuries, these texts have felt like this big jumble of different time periods. You've got a little bit of ancient ritual here, a dash of medieval philosophy over there. It makes it really easy to just dismiss them as pure myth. But what if that jumble is actually the key? What if there's a totally different way to look at that? Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. The method we're going to use here is, well, it's a little counterintuitive. See, instead of trying to prove that every single detail is historical, we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to scientifically remove everything that doesn't fit a single specific time period. The idea is by chipping away all the later additions, we can see what historical core is left standing. So, I want you to think of this as a kind of historical investigation. We're putting the epics on trial, not to convict them, but to sift through the evidence layer by layer and separate that original core story from all the edits and additions that were tacked on later. The goal? To find a single, consistent historical reality. So our first line of inquiry is the world of kings and chariots. How did people hold power? How did they fight their battles? It turns out the clues hidden in the politics and the warfare of the epics are incredibly revealing. Now, to find our historical anchor, we need to know what we're looking for. And this is it, the Janapada. This was an era of these early territory-based kingdoms. We're not talking about a vast, sprawling empire here, but a landscape of smaller rival states. This is the very specific political world we're going to be searching for inside the text. And check this out. This slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, in the belongs column, you see the world of the epic core. It's all about court politics, personal loyalty to the king, and these hero commanders in their chariots. Now look at what doesn't belong on the right. These are all the hallmarks of much later empires. Things like complex bureaucracy, professional armies, long drawn-out sieges. The world of the epics fits the Iron Age like a glove, and pretty much nothing else. Okay, so let's keep building this case. Let's move on and look at the social and religious fabric of their world. What did people actually believe? How was their society put together? This is where the evidence gets even more specific. And again, the contrast is just stark. In the belongs column, we see a world with Varna. These are more like functional social roles, and there was still some possibility of social mobility. Religion is all about these big fire rituals, or yajna. But then look at the does not belong column. All those later developments are totally absent from the core story. A rigid birth-based caste system, untouchability, worship in temples. These are all fingerprints of a much, much earlier world. Even the gods themselves tell the same story. In the epic call Indra, the old Vedic god of thunder, he's still a major player. Vishnu and Shiva? Yeah, they exist, but they haven't become the supreme, all-powerful deities of later Hinduism. There's no single dominant god. This kind of world, with many important gods, is a perfect match for the later Vedic period, long before the major sectarian traditions really took hold. Okay, so the politics and the religion are lining up, but does this hold true for just everyday life? Let's broaden our investigation and look at the material world described in these stories. The economy, the technology, the family structure. The economy of the epics is strikingly simple. Wealth is measured in cattle, not gold. Iron is used, sure, but mainly for basic tools to clear forests. Everything is based in villages. But what's missing here is absolutely crucial. There are no coins, no powerful merchant guilds, no real monetization of the economy. This is a pre-commercial agrarian world, which aligns perfectly with the early Iron Age. And what about family? Well, the society is definitely patriarchal, no question. But the source material is clear that the core stories lack the really extreme restrictions on women that you find in later texts. In fact, royal women often act as key political players, and marriage is a tool for forging alliances. Horrific practices like compulsory sati or widow burning are completely absent from this original layer. It's just another perfect fit for that time period we're zeroing in on. So the evidence has been presented. All the clues are on the table. It's time for the verdict. What does all of this mean for the historicity of the epics? Well, the conclusion is pretty clear. Once we strip away all those centuries of additions, a remarkably consistent picture emerges. The politics, the warfare, the society, the religion, the economics, they all point to one specific place and one specific time.
the Indian Iron Age, roughly between 1200 and 800 BCE.
So just think about the power of this exclusion method for a second. As step 1 shows, it doesn't just suggest a time period, it anchors the epics firmly in the real world of the Indian Iron Age. And then, as you see in step 2, it solves that central puzzle we started with. The reason the text felt like such a confusing jumble wasn't because the original story was messy, but because it was buried under centuries of later edits. This completely changes how we see these texts. They aren't some giant encyclopedia of every Hindu tradition from all of time. Instead, they're something far more precise and, frankly, more valuable. They're a window into the specific world of Iron Age India, and that focus, that clarity, actually strengthens their claim to be a form of remembered history. Which leaves us with a final question to chew on. We know that stories, even history, they get edited over time. People add things, change things. So, does peeling back all those layers to find the original draft make a story less true, or does it make it more?